In a properly functioning democracy, it's necessary that votes be counted with security and precision. To best ensure the will of the people is honored and that democracy is protected, election systems must be made so that software flaws or attempts to manipulate software are obvious to detect and protect against. This is the essence of the work of the open source security community. By creating open source election systems, these scientists have created solutions to a major worldwide problem. In open source voting systems, off-the-shelf hardware is utilized in conjunction with free general public license software for optimal results.
This is the future of voting technology. We all need to be looking for open source voting solutions. And it's time for us to be able to say to the legislature, to the world, that these are the systems that we require for us to accurately and transparently count and certify the vote. If you have financial constraints with an open source voting solution, you can drive those costs down so that they're manageable. Really, the hope for the future is that we can make democracy accessible to everyone.
Because this is open source, owned by the public, where we can get as many eyes on the software as possible. You have 100,000 eyes on something rather than one eye on something. You've got to have a tremendous amount more security. Voters can regain their confidence that when they vote, it's represented exactly the way they intended.
California Association of Voting Officials, or CAVO, was launched for the purpose of providing open voting systems for use in public elections, as well as to provide training and education to election officials. Here's how the system works. Known as the Deckert design, the voter makes selections on a screen at the poll site and a paper ballot is printed for their inspection. If correct, the ballot is given to the election official. The ballot has an open source barcode for tabulation purposes and is free from discrepancies regarding voter intent. The cost of this system is much less than the current secret software systems, and security is heightened by the transparent process. Designs are now in the works for military overseas voting, and it's anticipated that U.S. voters will someday be able to vote on their open source smartphones.
To vote for President Washington, say 1.
1.
To vote for Governor Ross, say 3.
3.
You have voted for President Washington and Governor Ross. Please confirm.
Cast ballot. It has to be open to the public. When you have general public license open source software, that means it's meeting the international standard for transparency. The hope for the future is to have full participation in our democracy and to have full voter confidence that the systems are working properly.
The disability community, open source would help them in the future, how being able to do it on an iPad or your smartphone. This technology ultimately will lend itself to a greater voter participation because of their access.
In California, Senate Bill 360 was recently signed into law by the governor. This law paves the way for open voting systems to become certified and deployed in California. It's up to citizens like you and me to make sure this happens. A lot of work has been accomplished, but there is still more to be done. Please support these efforts. Democracy depends on it.
So that was a pretty good representation of our situation. It's a national emergency. The vote, just if we didn't have enough problems with voting booth, voter suppression, I don't know. Now we've got these closed, I've covered this on past shows. We've got this closed codes that we can't get to. They're owned by Microsoft, and MSNBC, who is owned by Microsoft, they won't talk about it, of course, because Microsoft has a monopoly on the voting software that we're using to count the votes that decide our elections. And tech billionaires enable the men in the middle with secret proprietary code voting software that we can't decode, and that enables people to or organizations or special interests to steal elections. And there's things we can't even mention on this show because it's just too crazy. So this November could be a return to 2004 and 2000 elections. Now, so that's scary, isn't it? Hanging chads, remember that? In Florida, they're counting hanging chads, and then the Supreme Court, yeah, decided that election. So that was a mess. So my guest is Brent Turner from cavo.us.org. Hello, this is Mike. Is this Brent Turner?
It is.
Okay, this is my guest, Brent Turner. His website, cavo.us.org, who recently schooled Michael Moore regarding fair vote counting software technology. And so, can you catch our viewers up to what you've been up to lately since the last show?
Well, I'll give you. We'll start at the end and work backwards. I was in Sacramento today at what's called the STAC convention for all the counties in the state of California that congregate in Sacramento with the purpose of analyzing budget. And so all the county administrators were there, and I got in front of them to say that they should be paying attention to the election system issue because, of course, it's a way for every county to save billions of dollars and for them to set proper precedent for the rest of the country regarding elections.
Yeah,
So that was my presentation today, and we've just been on a real focused mission to make sure that all the officials in this budget cycle are paying attention to the election crisis so we don't end up buying another round of overpriced Diebold type machine.
Right. Diebold. Now, let's tell the viewers Diebold that they are the ones that have the hardware for the machines, right? Whereas Microsoft, pretty much their proprietary software for the counting of the votes, correct?
Yep. The Diebold, which their real name, I use that as a reference because of their notorious nature, but they changed their name to Dominion. And
Dominion.
So, yes, they make software as well, but they all run on Microsoft platform.
On a what kind of platform?
Microsoft.
Microsoft platform. So a whole room full of software engineers couldn't get near the Microsoft secret codes that count our votes.
That's correct, and the vendor code is the an issue as well, and you cannot submit it nor can you look at it.
Yeah. So now let's talk about this programmer that testified last week. The software programmer that testified about this the software being a backdoor. 5149 results will go to the people that want to win the election. Just if like the baby savers, in the South, you know what I mean? They've cheated elections and admitted to it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Clint Curtis, and that wasn't a couple weeks ago. Actually, that was a couple years back. That a fellow by the name of Tom, who was elected Republican in Florida, approached Clint Curtis with the request of Clint creating software that would flip vote count. And rather than play along, Clint alerted Congress and went and testified under oath to Congress that he had been recruited for the purpose of making software that would flip vote count. So that was quite a brave thing he did to testify, and unfortunately, I don't think anybody did any time over it, but it did go on the record, and it was quite startling to the members of Congress.
Yeah. I can imagine it's startling to everybody that hears about it.
Right.
Yeah, so let's talk about Here, let me get to my notes here. I couldn't turn the page. Now, San Francisco, we're leading in the open source voting technology, aren't we?
Well, we're attempting to. We are in the budget process right now, and there's been $300,000 allocated for the purpose of what they call a phase one study, which is just basically creates a plan to prove up how we will be moving forward toward the build-out of an open source system. So the hope is that the rest of the monies, the $1 billion that is necessary for the creation of the system, that is funded sooner rather than later, and that we are able to get a system together that becomes certified by the state of California. Once that happens, it can be deployed to all the counties that are interested, and from there we expect it to go nationwide as a replacement system to what we're calling the Diebold system, of the proprietary secret corporate-owned system. So it is all happening here in San Francisco, and that is, a big positive. Also, New Hampshire has been doing some good work. They have an open source disabilities component now deployed with their system, and they did conduct their primary with that system that was created. It's called the All for One, and it was created by Dr. Juan Gilbert, and we're hopeful that they will get a completed open source system in use in New Hampshire, but that will not happen for the 2016 president.
Can you tell us a little bit about Michael Moore, your conversation with Michael Moore?
Yes, I had the interesting experience of him calling on me as I raised my hand at his performance, and I asked him about his absence on the issue of election integrity, and he asked me my position, and I told him I was an advocate for open source election system software in conjunction with a paper ballot printing system. And he told me that, and this was public commentary, he told me that he didn't appreciate the position, and that his strategy, his position, was to wait for all the technology to be removed from the system, and that we would then hand mark and hand count paper ballots without its technology involved. And that got a round of applause from his fans. Well, I had to persist that was an inappropriate strategy that had already been considered, and that the fact is we're not getting rid of technology. The technology is here to stay due to volume issues and political will issues. So our solution is to attack the software and make sure that it is not corporate owned and that it is open to inspection and creation by the general public.
Now, I read an article.
What?
I read an article that maybe that the software wouldn't be ready by this election. Nobody's really going to use open source this election. So when would the soonest software, open source software, be? When is the soonest date for that to actually take place?
2018 would probably be the first election. However, as I mentioned, it is in New Hampshire right now, but only on half the system and not the tabulation system.
Ah, I see.
But for San Francisco in California, we're hopeful that we can get a system certified this next year and then deploy it soon thereafter.
Now, talk about the supervisors involved in how many voted yes on this?
Well, we think we're at 11-0 on the board.
Yeah.
We don't think anybody will stand in the way of proper security and cost effectiveness, because that would be an awkward position for a politician. However, there is a very strong Microsoft lobby inherent to this issue. And that being said, in San Francisco, we think we're at 11-0, and I think the mayor is in line with our work, and so we don't see any block necessarily. However, we're always watchful because it's taken us 10 years plus of pro bono work to get this far. So naturally, we're very aware that it's not completed until it's completed, and you have to remain vigilant in order to protect against the bad folks that either have protection for intellectual property interests or perhaps even worse, want to be able to affect an election.
So, what is there any argument in favor of the software we have now?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Are there any arguments in favor of the software we have now?
No, not really anymore. It's fairly well stipulated that open source creates the better security environment. There was an argument for years that secret software, a closed environment, would be considered more secure than an open environment, but that is called security by obscurity, and that is a failed concept that now, like I said, it's fairly stipulated that in order to have the best security environment, you have to assume that the hacker will hack, and you want to be able to see that hack.
Absolutely. Now, how about Nate Persily, the Election Integrity Wall of Shame inductee, number 1?
I'm sorry, who was that?
Nate Persily.
Oh, Nate Persily, yes. Nate Persily is a interesting fellow. He was given the task of accumulating information for insertion in the Presidential Election Committee report. And unfortunately, he omitted the open source information that was tendered. So we had to address that, and we requested direct consultation with the president and for the creation of an addendum to the report. Mr. Persily resisted that and could not give a valid explanation as to why. So we have concluded that should be removed from that position of information gathering if there is in fact another report.
So this is an intricate process that doesn't really, we can't really vote for to get rid of open source voting software. It's funny, huh? It's kind of ironic. But it seems like a very intricate process to move forward with this.
It's been a very intricate task with a lot of high-powered interests that come out of major universities, and of course elected officials think that the old systems worked pretty good if they got elected with them. So it's a bit of a twist, but there are some very strong advocates that are elected officials. I believe Nancy Pelosi, certainly her daughter Christine, has been a tremendous advocate for us. On our board of directors, we have executive director from the EAC, Brian Newby, who's not an elected official, but he has been, and many others. Originally, Dennis Kucinich was a big advocate. I'm trying to think. locally, Tom Amiano, of course, has been great for us.
Good.
And Howard Dean was also, another one that is heightenedly aware of this and appreciates the work that we've gone through to get it this far.
Wow, Brent. Well, thanks for all the work you're doing on this. We've got about 30 seconds left. Do you have any last comments about what people can do to ensure that our voting is integrity, ensure voting integrity in the future?
The best thing to do is vocalize your support to your supervisor regarding moving the project forward with full funding, the open source voting project for San Francisco. That's on the local level. On the state level, contact Secretary of State Padilla, let him know to be brave and stand up with us to support open source voting.
Thank you very much, Brent. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.